listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. I'm Cynthia, the pharmacist, and today you'll get your questions answered and your curiosity cured.
I'm talking about coffee. I had a guy and his dad come in yesterday, late last night, to the pharmacy, and he was looking for caffeine pills because he'd gone to the doctor because he had been having headaches. And the doctor told him to take caffeine pills. And the dad thought this was really hokey. But the kid was at least old enough to be like, I'm going to drive myself to the pharmacy and find some caffeine pills. So the dad decided to tag along. So then they found the caffeine pills. Then they came to me and they were like, okay. The dad was like, I don't understand why the doctor thinks that caffeine is going to fix a headache. I had to go through the deductive reasoning. Okay, why would a doctor think that caffeine is going to be helpful? Like just straight up caffeine is going to be helpful for a headache. To be able to explain it to this dad, and then I was like kind of proud of my explanation because he actually understood what I was talking about. But the history for this kid, he doesn't drink a lot of soft drinks. He doesn't drink soda, tea, coffee, anything like that. He's an athlete. He drinks sports drinks. He drinks water. So there wasn't really any caffeine consumption already in his regular diet. So for some of us who like consume caffeine, like we have more caffeine than anything else in our bloodstream. If we had to come off caffeine, then we would seriously have withdrawal headaches. But for somebody who doesn't have normal caffeine consumption, but headaches is a problem, this was the reasoning that I came up with for this kid. So your blood vessels, they're like a pipe and they run everywhere because the blood is the main transport system for all of the oxygen and all of the sugars that your body uses for energy, all of the nutrients that it needs. So the blood has to get to just about every nook and cranny of your body to be able to get all of those needed tools to the places that need to use them. And any tissue in your body that's a living tissue is going to need those things. It's going to need the oxygen and the sugar and the nutrients. So the blood vessels, being pipes, they are flexible pipes. So they can open up and they let more blood flow through at a time, or they can constrict down and let less blood through at a time. And constricting blood vessels in general cause pain. That's why when your hands and toes get really cold and those blood vessels constrict in your fingers will get tingly and feel numb. But also the opening or the dilation, that's called dilation when it opens, the dilation of the blood vessels can also cause pain. So when your hands go from the really cold place and they get really warm really fast and you get that like needles, like stabbing, burning pain in your fingers, that's the blood vessels opening up. So when the blood vessels are flexible, but if they constrict too quickly or dilate too quickly, your body kind of feels it and senses it as pain. If the constriction of blood vessels leads to the body part at the end of that path to be deprived of any of those needed tools, the oxygen, the sugar, the nutrients, then that deprived feeling, that tissue sends it to the brain as a signal of pain. So with a headache, a lot of headaches are caused by a overall constriction of the blood vessels in the scalp. Now here's a fun fact. Your brain is made up of neurons. Neurons are nerves that send your electrical signals to all the places that it needs to go. But your brain does not have the endings in it that allows it to feel anything. So if you've watched Hannibal, I'm not going to get graphic, but there's a certain scene in Hannibal where the guy doesn't know what's happening to his brain because his brain doesn't feel. Okay, so that's enough of that. But your brain doesn't feel anything. It sends a lot of signals and translates a lot of signals, but the brain itself does not feel. Now, there is the outer casing of your brain that has some nerve endings in it. There is obviously your your scalp that has tons of nerve endings in it. If you don't believe me, just pull your hair a little bit. There's nerve endings. So usually your headache pain comes from either something that is somewhere between the bone and the skin, somewhere in that thin layer. The other thing about your skull is that it's got lots of holes in it that allow nerves and blood vessels to kind of flow through the bones and get tunnels to different places to be more efficient. But they also allow air to depressurize. You've got a large sinus cavity here in the front of your face, but it connects to your ears and it connects to the tinier tubes in the back of your head. So all of that is pressurized. And so that's why you can have pain from sinuses, like in a place that you don't necessarily think your sinuses are. So there's lots of places in your head that can hurt and that have the nerve endings to send the signal to say, I hurt. But a lot of headaches are caused by some kind of blood vessel constriction in your head. And so it's usually, like I said, it's usually somewhere between the bone and the skin. It's not inside the bone where your brain is, even though it kind of feels that way. Or it may be because of an air pressure differential through the sinuses or all of those little tubes and tunnels in your skull bones. So if it's a blood vessel constriction problem, caffeine is the magical thing that you can consume to gently open up those blood vessels. So the way I explained it to the guy yesterday, the reason we drink coffee is because we need some dilation. And your blood vessels constrict when you sleep because your body is really efficient at making sure you're focusing its energy on the right places. So if your brain is asleep and like you're not digesting food and you're not having to use your skeletal muscles while you sleep, then those blood vessels constrict to focus the blood into the places that it needs to go, which has to do with healing, liver processes. And so it focuses the blood in to the places that keep running even though you're sleeping. So then you wake up and the body's process for dilating these blood vessels naturally to get your muscles moving and to get the blood flow back to your brain for you to be really alert is slow by itself. Exercise helps because you force your muscles to work, and as those muscles work, the muscles force the blood into all of those places. But caffeine is the other trick that we seem to use as a society. We drink coffee because we're tired and we need to wake up, and it's just miserable. So you can take ibuprofen or acetaminophen with caffeine for a headache. Yes, and that's why Excedrin makes its product with caffeine in it. So when we drink the caffeine and it opens up our blood vessels, then that's why we suddenly feel awake, because the blood vessels that are flowing to our brain that give us the alertness and the focus and the attention, then it's because those blood vessels dilated enough to let more blood flow to those areas faster. That's how caffeine works in a lot of areas. So for a headache caused by blood vessel constriction, you take the caffeine and it opens up. Caffeine pills are 200 milligrams of caffeine. Based on some of the size cups of coffee we drink, probably not as much as a cup of coffee. So if the headache's caused by the blood vessel constriction and we take caffeine and it opens it up, then it allows those blood vessels to dilate, to relax more. Blood flows to all the areas it needs to flow faster. How would drinking water help cure a headache? Dehydration can cause headache because essentially with dehydration, now this is going to sound dumb and it's going to be kind of over dramatic, but if you're dehydrated, then your blood is slightly thicker, so it's harder for it to get to all the places that it needs to go, where the water keeps it thinner and flowing freely. Now, if you're dehydrated, looking at like hydrated blood versus dehydrated blood, like in a puddle, you're not going to notice a difference. But on a microscopic level, it being more concentrated because there's less water, it gets more gunked up and doesn't flow as freely. So that's why dehydration can cause a headache. told me that if the top of your head hurts, it's probably due to dehydration. I've never seen scientific evidence on that. That may be true. Just because, that's the topmost of your body. First go-to for a headache is water. Always. We do so much stuff and we're so busy and so distracted sometimes that even people who are like neurotically focused on making sure they drink water, they probably still forget to drink enough water, at least on a regular basis. And water, you're going to have to drink a lot of water to get too much water. So that's not going to hurt you to drink the water. But dehydration, because there's less water in your blood vessels, it also lowers your blood pressure. And low blood pressure can lead to headache. And that may be why, the top of the head thing, because people who have, if you've ever had an episode of low blood pressure where, you get that impending, something's about to happen or I'm about to pass out, you get that numbness feeling in the top of your head and it kind of comes down. So Steve, water's not always going to be the cure for headache. But if that's your first go-to, that's cool, because if water fixes your headache, then you don't have to take anything else. But there's lots of things that can lead to headache, and constricted blood vessels is one of them. And so for this kid who was under 18, and the doctor, that's the cheapest option. They paid $8 for some caffeine pills. He didn't have to go see a neurologist for anything. He didn't have to pay for a prescription for anything, because prescription headache meds are expensive. That's a really cheap option. And that's one of the reasons why we probably consume caffeine so readily, because we know caffeine kind of fixes those things for us. Some people really like coffee just because it's coffee, and they're coffee connoisseurs and they know all of these things about special coffees. But then there's some of us that drink coffee because we have to survive, because I need that dilation to get the blood flowing to my brain as fast as possible, so I can be alert and on point to make sure things are happening the way they're supposed to and something doesn't slip by me. So it's really interesting, and it was kind of fun to just deduct that with this dad, to say, well, I can't say this is exactly why, but if the doctor didn't scan the kid's head to see that his blood vessels are constricted, then that's the doctor's best guess. But that's exactly the reason why Excedrin puts caffeine in its Excedrin headache, in the migraine pills. One, the caffeine itself helps dilate the blood vessels and can lead to headache relief. But two, that's not the only thing it does, because we know caffeine speeds up your heart rate. So with a sped up heart rate, your blood's flowing through your blood vessels faster, which means that your metabolism processes are happening faster. So you can actually process the other pain relieving medicines contained with the caffeine faster to get them to the places they need to go. That's why it's Excedrin can work in 15 minutes. Because of all of that sped up process, then you kind of get that Lucy and Ethel chocolate factory feeling, where the conveyor belt's going really, really, really fast, and you're trying to do everything really fast. Caffeine just kind of speeds up that conveyor belt, so those drugs make it through their processing and metabolism faster to get to all the places that it needs to go to work. I don't know if anybody still knows who Lucy and Ethel are, but when you think of the processes in your body working like an assembly line or a factory, that process can run slow or it can run fast. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. The pharmacy is now closed. You can post your questions and comments on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/pharmanswerspod. Or you can email the show at pharmacistanswershere@gmail.com. You can tweet me or message me on Twitter at @SinHendrix. You can find the show notes at pharmacistanswershere.wordpress.com. Pharmacist Answers broadcasts live on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time on the Periscope app. You can follow me at SinHendrix or view in your web browser at periscope.tv/SinHendrix. See you next time on the Pharmacist Answers podcast.